Hi, welcome everybody to the webinar. Thank you for joining us. We have some great things to show you today, and we're happy you're here. So while we've called this webinar the top 10 Tenstreet services you didn't know you had, it's really kind of a misnomer, as we'll actually be showing you more than 10. We want to make sure our clients are aware and are taking full advantage of some of the big efficiencies that we have in Express. We know you're busy and your time is valuable, and we just want to make sure that you're getting the most out of your investment. So before we begin, my name is Leah Kelly, and I'm here with Whitney Snyder.
Hi.
She's going to be leading our live demo today, but before I give her controls, I just wanted to cover the basics. So first of all, this webinar will be recorded, and it will be sent to the email address that you registered with it within the next 24 hours. So please be on the lookout for that. Please know that if for any reason we lose connectivity, the webinar will be rescheduled, and you'll receive a notification so that you can re-register. Also, remember your phones are muted during the presentation, so if anybody comes into your office or you get a phone call, don't worry, it will not disturb the webinar. Second, you can submit your questions anytime throughout the presentation, and you can do so using the text box under the question section in your GoToWebinar panel. So we'll try to answer them as they come in, but if for some reason we're not able to get to them right away, we'll be sure to address them at the end of the webinar. And then finally, you'll notice there's a handout under the Handouts section in your panel. This is a Tenstreet Services overview, which provides a quick listing of all of the services Tenstreet provides today. So if you have questions about any of those or are interested in learning more, please be sure to reach out to your advisor or your account manager. So today, Whitney's going to be walking us through all the items you see here on our agenda today. You'll gain a good understanding of some of the things that Tenstreet can do to help make your job easier, from tagging to tag processing to worklists, to many of the subject views you may not know that were available, all the way to Pulse. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. Whitney, I'm going to give you controls. Let's see. There you are. Okay.
Okay,
I can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. Alrighty, thank you guys all for joining today. It looks like we have a really good turnout. As Leah said, my name is Whitney Snyder. I have a lot of experience with Tenstreet as an account manager, which is why I have found myself in the position to be able to talk to you guys about some of the tools that you may not be aware that you have access to as just part of your basic functionality in the dashboard. So it's great to talk about additional tools and services that Tenstreet offers, but a lot of times it gets overlooked, the basic functionality that's built in to Express to make your lives easier and to make you more efficient. And so those are the topics that we want to cover here today. So we're going to just dive right in. I'm going to go to my test subject. Hopefully you all know, and if you don't know, we call unique individuals in our dashboard subjects, just so that you guys know that's what they're called. You may call them applicants or candidates. We call them subjects. So if you hear that term throughout this presentation, just know that that is what that is. So my test subject here is named Gunner Snyder. So I'm going to go ahead and pull her up. And just as an FYI, she does happen to be my dog. And so the first thing that I would like to show you guys, it's really common that our clients need to find where somebody is located on a map. You guys can see that Gunner, her address here is in Glenpool, Oklahoma, but what you probably don't know off the top of your head, unless you're local to Oklahoma, is that Glenpool is a suburb of Tulsa. And so it would be really nice to be able to see where she's located. So you can actually hyperlink from her zip code here, and it will open in a separate tab for Google Maps. And so you can check out where she is in proximity, maybe to your nearest terminal or hub. And what I also love about this is that it's actually not taking you away from the screen you're working on. It's just opening in a new tab. So when we're done with the map, we can just X out of it, and I'm back on the screen that I was previously working on. So that's just to help save you some time and some efficiency there. We're going to move over to tagging. So at the top of the big white box or the subject view, there's a tab called tagging. I hope that all of you have worked with this before, but the more that we talk to clients day to day on the phone, we learn that some people aren't aware that this is here, or maybe the use cases for it. So tagging is going to be built into your dashboard on the top right of the candidate or the subject. And then when we scroll down, we're going to see the different tagging. So tagging, if I were to put a definition to tagging, I would say that it is a tracking variable or a unique field that you can apply to a subject. And what's great about this is that because it's a tracking variable, that makes it searchable and reportable. And so I always tell my clients, if you ever find yourself thinking, man, it would be really great to be able to run a search on this, it's probably a really good candidate for adding as a tag. And those types of conversations take place daily with account managers, with advisors, via email. And so we're always on the lookout to try to add suggestions for you if you bring those types of things up for us. And so tagging is really easy to use. On the left-hand side, we have all of the available tags that your company has built. And on the right-hand side, we have those that are applied, so that are attached to this candidate. And so to move one over, I simply click on it. It's now moved over, and then each tag is going to have additional information to apply to it. So we can have, like with this driver type, we can have a custom list that you provide to us. We can also do dates like you see here with orientation date. We can do a text entry field, just like this truck school name, and then we can do a yes/no drop down. And so there's lots of different possibilities with the types of tags that you can add. We can also do tag categories. So this is something that I really love to help you be more efficient. So if you're really utilizing tagging as a company, you can see there's a lot of tags here. We can alphabetize these to make them easier, but likely not every tag is going to be applicable to every person who's working in your dashboard. It could be that your recruiters are responsible for applying certain tags, and that you have a safety department that's responsible or interested in certain tags. So we can add what we call tag categories that allow you to do just that. Put the tags specific to maybe a certain type of group or a certain type or portion in your process into a category. And so this, you can tell, is a way easier view to look at than all of the tags at once if I have a lot of tags. And I also love this because you can use this as almost a mini checklist. So if I know I'm a recruiter and I know that my company has said, I need to put all these tags to a candidate before I move them to hire, I can do just that. I can use this as, if they're on the left-hand side, I have yet to complete some of what I need to do. So good examples, because I think it's beneficial to talk about a couple of examples to kind of, get your head spinning about that. Orientation date, that is one that we suggest everybody use if you have orientations, which I assume everybody does, so that you can easily run a report or a search to find out who you have coming to orientation. You can do orientation location if you have multiple locations. Hire date, this is one that I strongly suggest everybody utilize, because although you can have a hired status, that's not necessarily capturing the date of hire. This hire date tag would do that. And I don't know, there's very few clients that I've talked to that wouldn't like to be able to run a report for how many hires they had in the month of July, for example. And so the possibilities are really endless. You guys can see that we have a lot built into our demo environment here to give you some ideas. But if you do need to add tags or have questions on them, your account manager or your account management team can do those for you. So this is an access that you guys wouldn't have to be able to add or create the tag for your company. So you would have to ask your account management team. Okay, so kind of segue out of that into a good topic is that you can actually apply tags automatically based off of an incoming application. And so a really good example of this is that driver type that I just applied here. Let's say that you have a question on your application that is, what type of driver are you? You can have a corresponding tag that answers that. And upon that application coming in, we can apply the tag. And so that just takes some manual review and entry out of the question because it's automatically coming in. It could be that you have a question on your application for TWIC card. Do you have a TWIC card? And you want to see that immediately, maybe that's a really important field for you, you can automatically apply that based on the incoming application. Something else that we can auto select or auto apply would be the work list. So many of you are probably using work list. Common ways to utilize this would be driver type or location of a terminal. And so if you have, for instance, a location question on your application, what location are you applying for? And your work list corresponds with that, we can automatically assign the candidate to that specific work list. And so with this automation, we're just trying to take away some of the manual steps that you would be doing anyway, so that you can get to some of the bigger decisions, those that take a little bit more thought, taking away some of those clicks from you. Alrighty, so next we're going to move up to the Documents tab. And so I hope that you are all aware that you have the ability to store documents electronically with a candidate or a subject in Tenstreet. So I hope that that's common knowledge. If it's not, well, you can. So here, documents can come into here via multiple ways. They can come in through integrations, like if you have an integration with a background vendor, those can automatically come in saved here. You can upload them. So you can upload documents that you might have paper copies of, and you can also utilize our onboarding communications tool to have people send electronic documents or uploads as well. So there's a number of ways that you can get documents here electronically, and you can also have different category names. So we think of categories in Tenstreet as the manila file folders that you would store in your file cabinet, and the files within that are what we would call file types. And so every company that starts out with Tenstreet, we have you set up with some basic categories. I believe they're General, Express, Exchange, and DQF, but a lot of people don't know that you can customize from there. So you don't have to keep that format if you don't want. You can add additional categories. You can move documents around. So maybe we set you up with a document in DQF and you guys actually considered that human resources. You could create human resources and move that over. There's a lot of benefit to customizing your categories. It helps you to stay more organized, and it also helps you in the ways that you view your documents. So for instance, if I want to view a whole DQF file, I have the ability to view by category. So here we can see in gray with black writing DQF as the category name and the way they're displayed. I can click this view button and it's going to automatically select all of the DQF files that I have saved here. And so this could be really beneficial for somebody who views a lot of files. So rather than selecting one document, one document, one document, one at a time, I can select all. Let's do, since I don't have a lot of documents in here, I can do all of these and then view all PDF and TIFF, and that will open them all at once for me. So it's a really great way to kind of shortcut viewing those. You can also, once I have categories selected, let me show you what it looks like if I have all here. So this is a lot of file types. Well, if I need to run a search on a document, it's kind of hard sometimes to search through here to find CDL. Well, if I know the CDL is part of DQF, I can select the DQF, and now I'm going to be limited to seeing just the documents that are part of the DQF category. And so then I can select CDL from a much easier to read list, run a search, and here are my CDLs for this driver. Okay, so next I want to go over to search. Just a quick tip, you guys can see I ran a search earlier and we can see that it saved my search criteria. That's something that's intended to help you guys. But if you need to remove what's in here rather than going in and deleting, you can just hit this reset button in red and it's going to reset all of my fields to blank. Okay, so with our search, we have the ability to search by all the basic information with the subject, of course, their name. Social does have to be a full social in order for it to search. You can search by a zip code within. So if I want to search for, a radius within a zip code, I can do that. I can also search based on fields that I'm applying. So for instance, show me everybody who's in a recruiting status assigned to the Dallas work list. So you can do multi-tiered searches so that you have multiple parameters involved. We already talked about tagging, so you have the ability to search for tags as well. And so a lot of you probably don't see this whenever you log or come to your search. You can click this tag search button and it will open here. And then I'll show you here in a minute how you can set a preference to where this is automatically open in your search as well. And so you can search on tag plus criteria up here. And then if you find yourself searching for something multiple times, so I like to think weekly or maybe every other week, if you find yourself running the same search and it's multiple parameters and it's taking you a couple minutes to get all this stuff set, you can actually create a quick search just by clicking add. You select your parameters, you name it and hit save, and it will save that quick search. And I'll show you an example here. So we have StuPro, which stands for student processing. So now I can just do a quick search on those parameters. So it's just saving parameters that I utilize often. There's other use cases for things that you're looking for often that I'll talk about being good candidates for homepage reports here in just a minute. So I like to think weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, those are really good examples to save a quick search. Alrighty, so we just talked about user preferences. Now I'm going to go show you how to actually change those. So when you click your name here, we're going to go to settings. And so this user is a primary user. We can see that they have controls. This is something that's only going to be given to a primary user on an account, and controls are for the whole company. And so anything that's changed here is going to change for the whole company. Whereas my preferences, these are going to be specific to the user. And so you don't have to worry about if you come in here and you change some of your express preferences, you don't have to be worried that you're changing it for your coworker. Preferences are by the user. And so I always suggest having you, if you've been in Tenstreet a while, I say to come in here and see what types of things you might be able to change. Sometimes we have questions, or I wouldn't say complaints, but pain points within the dashboard that are actually things you can change via your preferences. And so some of those I'm going to show you here real quick, the things that I think are the most useful to come in and change. So in the search, if you want the tag search to be the default to where it's opened, that is advanced. So here you can see advanced. Standard would mean that the tag search is hidden from the beginning. So you can come in here, go to advanced and apply. So anytime you make a change, you'll want to apply for that section. You can see that they're sectioned out here. The next section, subject view. So I'm going to talk in depth about a few different views here in a minute, but I want to point out here, since we're in preferences now, that you can select the default view that you'd like to see. And so why would this be useful? Maybe you work in safety and you're primarily looking at the DQF view every day. And so you're always clicking over, you're not actually really paying much attention to the app view. So you could make the DQF view your standard view or your default view. Or if you're always referencing your checklists, you could make that your standard view. So once you select the one that you like, you can apply your preferences. Additionally, we talked about tags, and I think I failed to mention tags can also be displayed in the big white box so that you don't just see them whenever you go to the tag section. You actually see them in the big white box. So each person in the dashboard may have their own individual preference on what tags that are important to them. And so you can actually choose which tags are displayed in your big white box. Okay, and so to do that, you just select, so you can multi-select here, and then you can hit apply. Okay. Next, tagging. So we talked about the ability to add tag categories to save you a few clicks. If you're in recruiting, for example, you can select recruiting as the default. That way you're not always on all whenever you go to the tag section, hit apply, and that will save the preferences there. So that way whenever you go into tagging, it's always just showing you recruiting. It doesn't mean that you won't have access to the others. It's just by default opening that page versus another. And then the last one that I want to show you is the reminders box. So the reminders are over here on the left-hand side, and got to scroll up for them. So the reminders, these are the reminders just in case you're not familiar with those. These are intended to show you things occurring in the dashboard or remind you to go do something in the dashboard. And so those are the reminders I'm talking about in the preferences here. So sometimes it occurs that someone has an abundant amount of reminders because they go in the future. By default, there's no limit on the reminders that you'll see there. And you might have 50, you might have 100, depending how actively you're using those reminders. So you can actually come in here and limit that so that you only see, let's say I only want to see a week out, because that's plenty of reminders for me to see. I can change the number of days out that I see those. If it's on this just a blank, that just means there is no limit and you're going to see all of your reminders for the future. So that one can be really helpful, especially if you feel like your reminders is becoming maybe a little overwhelming or messy. That is something that I would strongly suggest going in and changing. Alrighty, so we're going to go out of the preferences and over to tools. So many of you may be aware that in the spring we added the import tool. And so with the import tool, the problem that we were trying to solve, we had a lot of feedback that clients were working with Facebook and they were getting an export of their leads and then manually entering them in Tenstreet so that they could work their leads just like they work all their other leads. So we created an import tool that primaries get access to. It can be added for other users as well, but this is going to allow you to complete imports. And so you can see we have one for Facebook, HubSpot, and then a custom file. What's really great about the tool is that you have formatting instructions that you can hyperlink to. And then you can also, if you've never done this before or if you need a refresher, over here with the actions, you can do an import tutorial and it will kind of walk you through step by step so that you can learn how to do so and that you can do so confidently. Kind of on the same subject of Facebook and importing, we also have added a new tool for Facebook leads. And so primaries will be given this tool as well, and it's allowing you to link your business Facebook page. So you would come in here, enable Facebook, so you'd have to log in and then give access to Tenstreet. There's a few accesses you have to provide, but what's great about this is then once we're connected, all of your forms that you have through Facebook leads will show up, and you can select routing So you could route to a specific recruiter or work list through that, and they will come in funneling into your Tenstreet dashboard, just like any other lead form that you're working with. And so that is something I believe we're still beta testing right now. If that's something you're interested, you can send us a message, your account management team a message, but that is something that's coming very soon. Alrighty, so I'm going to head back over to the home page. By doing so, I just go to my top left hand corner and hit home. And I mentioned that there is a thing called homepage reports that oftentimes we create so that we can show data that is pre-selected. And so what I mean by that is homepage reports are simply reports where we're already selecting the parameters. And so I think that it's best to describe what a homepage report is simply by talking about specific examples. So here I have built orientation roll call, and all this is a report telling me who is coming to orientation next week. So it's pulling based on the orientation date tag, and then it's providing me the name, and then some basic information. So with homepage reports, what's great is you can determine what information is in the columns. So if you needed city and state or any other type of information that's in the big white box or possibly on their app, or in tagging, you can include that. And then you can also hyperlink and open that subject view. So I just clicked on Gunner, for instance, and I'm automatically opening a new window with her subject view. And so orientation roll call is a really good example. We can get really creative. An example that I worked with a client on, the problem they were having was that they had verification of employment, where they would call them hot verifications when they were coming close to the 30 days and they were really needing to try to get those. So they created a tag where they would tag them if they needed special attention. And then we created a report that we provided to the processors, the people in charge of those VOEs, and it would automatically show them right on their homepage who they needed to be, paying special attention to or working towards with maybe a little bit more fervor so that they could get those completed. So we solve a lot of problems via homepage reports, and those are always coming out based on really good conversations that you have with either your advisor or the account management team. We also have what's called Focus. Focus is a page that allows you to see reports that are more interactive. So I suggest coming into the Focus tab if you've never come in here before. I won't go into any of these, just for sake of time, I won't go into any of these in detail, but these are interactive reports. So you can see, like on this calls view report, I can change the amount of days really easily. I can do different types of parameters and they change real time. So there's a lot of really neat widgets, we call them, in Focus that I suggest checking out if you've never been on that view before. Okay, so now I'm going to go back over to my test subject, Gunner, and we're going to talk about some of the different views that I would suggest taking a look at if you haven't before. So when I talk about views, I'm talking about in this top left-hand corner of the big white box where it says App View, you have a drop-down that shows you all of your available views, and the views are what occurs below here, below the big white box. Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about is the Communications view. And if you've been in Tenstreet long, you probably know that this view, if you were using it, underwent some major changes, not just in the way that it looks, but in the functionality of the view pretty recently. And so the Communications view, the purpose of the view is to store and show all of the communication with a subject in one place. So you can keep track of text messages, pulse messages, phone calls, and emails all from here. The email portion is coming soon via dashboard email. And so you can see here that we have a nice little timeline. It's easy to see communication of different methods. We have a message, then a call, a message. So there's a lot of different functionality here that allows you to, rather than checking your email inbox to try to dig through and see what occurred versus some text messages, and maybe you were keeping track of your phone calls via sticky note, this is a way that you can see that all in one place. Via the preferences here, you can determine what all you'd like to see. So not only can you see actual communication, you know, in the traditional sense, but you can also see when did applications come in. So this is cool because maybe you want to see application came in, how long did it take us to text this person to reach out and say, hey, let's get on a phone call, right? So there's a lot of different functionality that you can do by seeing you know, the different types of communication here. And then you can also save your default as well. And then additionally, something else that is super cool here is that you have the ability to also start communication via the communications view. So if I needed to send a message, I could just click over here, send my message. If I need to send an email via dashboard email, I can simply open up the email tab. It's going to automatically populate Gunner's email address that's on file from the big white box, automatically say my name, and then the subject is message from, this would be your name at your company. You can change this, of course, but maybe I just want to say happy birthday. I noticed that it's Gunner's birthday and I'm trying to be friendly and give her the warm fuzzies, so I can send a happy birthday email. We also have emojis that I failed to put in the message, but we can add emojis now as well, which I know everybody's really excited about. And so now we can see that an email has been sent over to Gunner. And so this is a very, very useful view that's going to take some of the question mark out of, you know, are there gaps in communication? Is there something I don't know? This makes it easy not only for you to remember what communication you have with a subject, but also for one of your coworkers or somebody else who's responsible for working candidates to come in and see a full picture. So we're really excited about that. We've worked really diligently to make the communications view better and more robust to serve a bigger purpose for you guys. The next view I want to talk about is the highlight view. So the app view is going to show the entire application. You guys are probably pretty aware of that, but the highlight view is more of a snapshot. So it's ironic that I have this today because I actually had this conversation with a client earlier today. We were walking through the process of processing an application, and the first thing that they do is they look at work history. Now, they weren't looking at the detail. They wanted to know how long they've been driving, and so they're going through the app view employment one by one. Well, I showed her the highlight view, and it was exactly what she was needing in a quicker method, right? So we have employment history here in a box, and any employer would be listed below with the start and end dates. So this is a really great way to see things more quickly. It's the stuff that you would be looking at anyway without having to pick it through an entire application. So you can come in here, you can see employment history. We'll also show you violations and accidents in a table format. We find that those are the things that a lot of people are coming to check first, and so that's why they are here in the highlight view. Just as a note, remember you can make this your highlight or your default view. I do have clients that this is the first thing they want to look at whenever they work a candidate, so they make it the default view. And then lastly, I want to talk about checklists. So checklist is a view. Checklists are a tool that you have the ability to create that are just that. They are a checklist that allows you to see where you are in your processing. So the way that you can create a checklist is via tag, document, or process being run. Those are the most common. You can see that we have a recruiting checklist here, and within our recruiting checklist, we have multiple sections. It's pretty simple. Green means it's done. Red means it is not done. So like in this employee tag, employee number tag, that means that it hasn't been applied. We have the ability now from this, or we will have via interactive checklist, to click on that and add the tag automatically. And then it will update and we can see that the tag has now been applied. Same with documents or processes. If I need to run, I say, oh man, I forgot to order that phase 2 background report. I can click here and I can run that. And so we additionally have the ability to have several checklists. So it's really beneficial for different portions of your organization who work in the dashboard, or maybe just for different parts of the process. It could be the same person, but they kind of keep track of things on different lists. Which is exactly what we're trying to take away, is the idea that you have to keep a list by paper of things that you need to complete. What's really great about checklists as well is it's not, you can't just come in and check it off and say, yep, I've done that. It actually is checking for something being completed, which is really useful. We're not worried about somebody accidentally saying they've done something. It's actually looking for, is this tag applied? Is this document present? Has this process been run? And so these are all things that you can set up with your account management team. And you can also do driver facing checklists. And I'll show you here in a minute kind of how you can control that once you have your checklist set up. So we're going to go back up to the big white box, and I want to talk about a little bit of functionality as it pertains to pulse controls. So I hope that you are all aware that we have a driver-facing application called Driver Pulse. They can access it for free via their phone or smart device, as well as via a web portal. And so if they have Driver Pulse, you'll see this little pulse symbol here in their big white box. You can communicate with them via Pulse. So it's going to open that communications view so that I can send Gunnar a message via Pulse. If she has a profile, so it's not the same as an application. Think of this, I don't want to say a Facebook profile, but it's kind of like that, where you enter some information about yourself. They have the ability to answer some questions and set up a Pulse profile. So either they would have a blue man here or a picture. So Gunnar has opted to upload a picture of herself here. And you can see her profile information based on the questions she's answered here. So all of these questions are the questions they have available to them to answer. They can also send you documents via Pulse. This is super cool because you could have a phone conversation with someone and you don't even have to send a request. If Gunnar knows because you said, hey, send me your CDL copy, she could automatically send that over and you'd get a little pop-up notice that you have that to take a look at. And then below the documents to be filed section, we have the driver profile matrix. This is working in correlation with your active jobs that you have set up. And so green dots are going to be matches where we have questions answered. So when you set up your active jobs, you answer these. And then we're going to put green dots where they might correspond with what she has answered in her profile. Alrighty, and then the last thing that I want to talk about is going to be back in tools, and it's going to be Pulse. And give me just a second. Okay, and so within Driver Pulse, the first thing that you want to do every single time is going to be make sure that your company is enabled in Driver Pulse. Okay, so within Driver Pulse, that's the very first thing that you want to make sure happens each time, because otherwise your company isn't even going to be visible. Then We won't talk about these. These are just sharing options, but they're pretty explanatory once you get in here. But I want to make you aware that you have the ability to also share documents with candidates. And so here you can say which documents you want to show. So it could be reports that you're ordering, also forms that you have them sign electronically. You can determine when they see them. You can turn that on and off, but I do want to just throw out that the feedback that we've received from drivers, like on boards, is that they love transparency. And with Driver Pulse, what we're shooting for is as much transparency as possible, because the more that they can communicate and see where they're at in your process, the more likely that they are to move quickly and get hired. Okay, so documents. You also have the ability to share checklists. So we're going to show you all of your checklists that you have visible. You have to select it on to get started, and then you can select, well, I don't want the recruiting one, maybe I want this accident review for some reason. Then I can, within that, even narrow down the specific pinpoints that I want the driver to see. Likely it's going to be those that are driver responsibilities. That's what we would consider a good thing to show here. So like, for instance, I want to show driver responsibilities. Let me do all of these. And you can even change the name. So like if it's called document upload CDL here, well, maybe that's not the best name to show a driver, because that might not make much sense. You could change the description so it's more driver facing to them. And then down here, we have your status controls. So the driver is never going to see the name of the status in Pulse, but they will see the corresponding percentage bar. So we would just suggest that you come in and review these to make sure that they seem accurate for your process, and that way the driver can stay kind of up to speed with where they're at in the process. Because, you know, the closer they get to this 100%, the more likely they are to be engaged and try to, you know, help you get you what you need to get hired. And then aside from making sure that you're enabled in Pulse, we would strongly suggest coming in to get a company description. That way it's not just your company name, it's actually a description of your company, so that you are trying to stand out. Here it's not just, oh, shiny side up transport. It's what's great about you. What are your benefits? What's the way that you get drivers in the door? Alrighty, so that is all that I have today. Leah, do we have any questions?
Yes, we did. We had a few. You had such a great flow going. You did a great job. Thank you so much. That was really informative. I didn't want to stop you every time, but so I apologize to those questions for making those question askers wait. But we've got a few in here. So first of all, is there a way to restrict a user or a group of users from accessing specific tag categories? For example, if the safety tag category, like if it wouldn't be accessible to recruiters, kind of like how it works with document categories?
At this time, there is not. So the way that tag accesses work is that it's at the tag level. So you could create a tag that is not editable, but you couldn't restrict it only from certain users. It's kind of an all or nothing type of deal. But we could work on, if that is something that you're looking at, what I would suggest is trying to get a call with your account manager or team and talking about the specific problem that you're solving, so that we can deep dive into finding a way to solve that problem. It's not always the exact method that you might think, but we can typically get to a good solution.
Okay, great. So the next question is, how do we set up the auto tags?
Yeah, so that's done by the account management team. So if you know that you have, you know, first of all, you want to make sure you have a tag. So if you don't have one that corresponds or a question on the app, you just want to make sure you have those. But that's all requested through the account management team.
Okay. And can you restrict document viewing access for individual users?
Yeah, you can. So actually that is the category is the way that we restrict documents. So you would need to work with your account management team. I think you probably hear there is a theme going here, but you would work with your account management team to set up categories and then you can restrict based on like view, edit, and delete on each of those categories. That's super common.
Okay, great. Can you show one more time how to get to the Express Preferences page?
Yep.
I think
So
it'd be under your settings, yeah.
yep. So it's under your name and then settings. And then it'll be here on the left-hand side, my preferences.
And everything's over there. Okay. The import tool, this participant doesn't have the import tool on their dashboard, and they're wondering why that is.
So we automatically set that up with all primary users on the account. And if anybody else needs access, the primary would just need to ask the account management team to add the access for specific users.
Okay, great. So this person would just need to ask their primary if they can have access, and then they would be able to get it that way.
That's correct.
Okay, great. And can reports can reports be set up to be emailed on a scheduled basis to certain users?
They can. So we can set those up. We would need to know, obviously, the report name if the report's already set up, and then we would need to know the parameters that you would run on, and then the email addresses of the people that you'd like it emailed to. But we can definitely do
that. Okay. So moving on to the dashboard email, we have a few questions about dashboard email. Is there a plan to add spell check?
I am not aware if there is a plan, but we can definitely put that as a question to our development team.
Let's look into that one, yeah. I thought it was there, but yeah, we'll have to look into that and get back to you.
Yep, I'd have
to. And then what about, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say I would have to test to see because I wasn't aware if it was or was not in there. So I'd have to take a look.
Yeah. Okay. We'll get back to you with that one, with the answer to that one. And so attachments, if you create a template in your dashboard email, can you also save an attachment to that template?
I believe at this time you're not able to save an attachment. That would be another thing that we can take to the dev team. That's all good feedback because it's a brand new tool. And so any feedback on a new tool is great because we're working out, I don't want to say the kinks, but anything that might need to be added, we can take a look at. So we'll put a note on that.
Okay, perfect. And this one is asking about messaging. So if you want to message somebody by a pulse or a text, or an email, how does the applicant receive that message?
Yeah, so if they have Pulse, they will receive it via Pulse, but you also have the ability to, I don't believe this is configured for text message at the moment, but you would have the ability to, it would say send also as text here. So they would get it via Pulse and text message. And so if they have the app, it's similar to applications that you might have on your phone where you have notification settings where they could get a notification that they have a message.
Okay, great. And the checklist, if somebody's interested in that, is that something that's included in basic services or is that an additional fee?
Nope, it's included in basic services.
Perfect. I love all these yes answers. Okay, so why can't a drug verification through HireRate come back through Tenstreet?
I would have to look at the specifics on that. I'm not positive if we're talking about I'm honestly not familiar with that as far as like the integration goes. So I'd have to see. It could be based on the sensitive type of information that's housed in a drug test. But I'll have to look into that further. I'm not positive. If you could, it looks like that came from Mindy. If you could send us an email with a specific on that one, we can definitely look into that.
Yeah, there is a new integration we have with PulseMD with HireRight where we can get drug results and such. So, but we can get with you to find out more specifically what you're looking for, if that doesn't answer your question. Okay. And let's see. We had a couple more come in. Okay. In the document screen, is it possible to add a print button so the document doesn't have to be opened first?
I think we would probably want to talk about use case there on kind of why the document's being printed and kind of dive in a little bit deeper to see if it's something that should be added.
Yeah, I think that's great. So we'll get back with you on the couple questions that you asked there. And then I think that about wraps it up. We don't have any more coming in right now, but I wanted to thank everybody. Thanks, Whitney, and thanks everybody out there again for joining us today. We know your time is valuable, and we really appreciate you spending part of your day with us. And we just want to end by reminding you to make sure you visit our blog and keep your eye on your login notices and sign up for future webinars from our events page or from our newsletter or from our login notices. We're really passionate about keeping you informed, and these are just a few ways that we do this. So thanks again for joining us today for Top 10 Tenstreet services you didn't know that you had, and we hope that you have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks.